Hello and welcome to the first Talent Brand podcast of 2019. Happy New Year. I'm really excited about our guest today, Shaunda Zilich, who is the employer brand leader at Qualtrics. Did I say that right, Shaunda? Qualtrics.
Yeah.
That's
Qualtrics,
right.
yeah.
I've used them and before, and I still can't say their name. It's so excited. I've had the pleasure of working with Shaunda in the past. She's one of my favorite people in the space. She's so smart. I love seeing her speak, and she's going to be a facilitator at the next Talent Brand Summit in March.
She is.
That's right.
Well, Happy New Year, Shaunda.
Happy New Year. Welcome.
Happy New Year to you guys too.
So Shaunda,
it's amazing. We'll have to get all our whiteout we'll have to get all our whiteout out, right? Or our backspace to delete the 18 for the 19.
That's right. And I've got my white pants. Is that customary at the beginning of the year, white pants?
I think you're not supposed to do it after Labor Day.
Oh.
No white pants.
You have to wait till Memorial Day.
All right.
Yep.
All right.
Although you live in Austin, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, no one will care. Besides,
he meant white shorts, really.
Just like the video version of this podcast, most meetings I do, you can't even see below the waist anyway. So I can really wear whatever pants I want. Yeah. Anyways.
Thanks for that visual.
On the topic, for those that don't know Shaunda, tell us a little bit about yourself, Shaunda. Like, tell us more about your current role and your company.
Sure. Yeah. So I do work for Qualtrics. I am our global talent brand lead here, and it's been a short but a fun ride so far for me. I actually started here about 6 months ago. It's probably about 7 months ago now. Time flies when you're having fun. But started as their first person outside of everyday recruiters, really, in their team talent or recruiting function, where the talent director here said, I really want to bring in somebody that can help with the employment brand side of things, can work with our company brand and our marketing brand. And so he caught me in a moment, I'll say, because, it's we don't really take those recruiter calls very often. And I was actually at General Electric before this, and it wasn't doing great, but at the same time, I was fine with staying there and learning through the hard times. And he caught me on a moment. I thought about this company, and really it was within maybe 10 minutes. And I thought, what in the world? Because what Qualtrics is it's actually a software platform that basically crunches data and provides data insights for over 9,000 companies around the world. So, and it's data insights that connect the customer experience to the employee experience, to the brand experience, to the product experience. And what does that lead me to think about in employment brand, but the candidate experience.
Candidate experience and the data that tells the story of what you've been able to achieve.
Awesome.
And that's what happened, right? Within the 10 minutes, I thought to myself, wait a minute, this is like what I believe in. I believe in this data that needs to tell the story. And right now I'm still trying to sell that to people. And there's this company that already not only believes
that's what they do.
But that's what they do. And so within 10 minutes, I was like, I need to think about this. And at the time I was living in Louisville, Kentucky with my family. And he said, you'll have to relocate to Utah. And I said, yeah, I don't think that's going to happen. And I kind of let it go. And that night, my husband actually said to me, he's like, what is up with you? You have like this glow. And I said, I talked to this talent director this afternoon, and he's like, where is it at? And I said, I don't even want to talk about it, And anyways, I ended up telling him Utah, and he said, I think I could see myself living there. He had never visited. He had no idea.
He liked the sound of Utah.
Move to the desert.
I think looking back on it, I told him, I was like, is it just because there's not really that many natural disasters there? Because I had job offers in San Diego and Florida and that sort of thing. And he's like, yeah, I kind of like it because it's going to be like the middle of the United States. But all in all, I like
it. You're apocalyptic proof. Yeah.
Well,
awesome.
We'll see. There's a huge fault line here that's like over 100 years from like past when it was supposed to have an earthquake. So
no, that's okay. When I took a new job and moved across the country, and within 3 months experienced earthquakes and fires and pretty much every natural disaster that California has to offer. So I get you. Yeah, you never know.
What was that?
Yeah.
Oh, you were there too.
Yeah, I relocated as well. So tell us just a little bit about how your family has grown accustomed to Utah. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so it was interesting. I had never been here either. I flew in for my interviews and I literally was actually a little worried that I had gotten on the wrong flight because there were snow-capped mountains. And I was shocked because, like you already said, Will, I thought it was the middle of the desert. I thought Utah was supposed to be the desert. And so when I figured out, hey, mate, this is actually beautiful. I mean, I can remember actually gasping out loud the first morning when I was going to my interview, seeing this mountain in front of me. I went back and I got my husband. We came out and visited, and we kind of said, hey, let's look at this as an adventure. Let's look at this as a family adventure. Actually, the more I considered the option, the more I realized it was really exercising a different part of my brain, an employment brand, than what I had been doing. And we kind of looked at that as a family. It was living in a different area than anything we had ever experienced before. So we looked at it as an adventure. We came out here. I've always been a person wherever I live to try to become part of the community, right? And figure out what there is to do here. So we
soak in the culture.
Yeah, so we went at it 100%, went on hikes during the summer. We're now learning to ski. I can tell you some fun stories of my 4-year-old darting past me and I can't get to her and she's all excited and doing great. But the thing is 2 months in, my 10-year-old looked at me and he goes, Mom, we said this was going to be an adventure, but we're not going to go back, right? So I think that just lends itself to show you it was more than we even expected it to be.
It's been really cool. I mean, I'm lucky to be Facebook friends with you and have seen you kind of make this big move with your family, which you are adorable, by the way. And then how you've just really embraced and are just really enjoying being in that area. But I think most people don't understand that Provo, Utah is a huge and growing tech hub. There's a lot of big tech companies out there, including Qualtrics.
Yep.
Like Ancestry.com is out there and some others. It's a really, really interesting and growing metropolis.
It's amazing. The companies, we're literally almost at least once a week, we're like, oh my gosh, I didn't know that was headquartered here, and they actually it's called Silicon Slopes. Because there's so many tech companies coming here. The cost of living is honestly very comparable to Kentucky, except for housing. Housing's a little bit more expensive just because Kentucky is the cheapest in the United States, I think.
Yep.
But I think there's over 500,000 people are supposed to move here within the next couple of years even.
Yeah, wow. A lot of people are moving in, from the coast, and there's a huge migration.
So it's natural disasters.
To the middle. I don't know. It's cost of living. Mostly.
I think it is cost of living.
It is.
And they have a lot to offer now. They're really that part of America it's not flyover anymore. It's really growing in a lot of amazing ways. Well, that's awesome. Shaunda, tell me, you've been with Qualtrics 6-7 months now. I've heard you talk about it in other meetings. What have you been working on these last 6-7 months, and what are going to be your big initiatives this year in 2019?
Sure. So obviously the first thing to do is just to really set the foundation, right? And we established the Qualtrics Life social channels, the Qualtrics Life blog, a brand ambassador program where our employees here, and we're not just in Provo, we're in Seattle, Dallas, Dublin, Sydney, Toronto, and Raleigh. And if I've forgotten, Krakow. If I've forgotten somebody, they're going to kill me. But really establishing what that Qualtrics Life life looks like, whether it's at work or part of our work-life balance or part of just life, and being able to tell that story externally, whether it's through our brand ambassadors or just by hashtagging and running campaigns and that sort of thing. So definitely standing up that foundation has been first and foremost. I think the interesting thing about here that I think maybe I didn't experience as much at GE is it was already bought into.
Yeah.
I mean, our slogan or our company stands for experience management.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't really sit down and say, let's talk about candidate experience, because it's already ingrained.
Right.
Everything is an experience. So it's been really interesting jumping in. There's been things that I've been able to get done that took me 5 years to get done at and probably took me less than 5 weeks to do at Qualtrics.
Well, yeah, smaller companies move a lot faster. And I remember working with you at the project at GE, and just you are an amazing example of somebody sort of pioneering an employer brand, and I mean pioneer in the fact of being able to work with corporate marketing to create that synergy and that unity between the employer brand and the consumer brand, and just one part of being right place, right time, but also the right skill set and the right leader in that role. And the portfolio that you built there is just amazing. And people still talk about, the Owen commercials and how you were able to make a connection with the consumer brand in a really big and global way that I don't think anybody's seen an employer brand campaign like that. And then to go to a startup and feel like you get a chance to build it from the ground up. I know that feels like it's someone who came from like an SAP and then went into a startup, that building it from the ground up. It's really fun. It's like, I'm free. Like, tell us about like what has been, that transformation for you, and like what really gets you jazzed about this new adventure you're on.
And it's not just the fact that I could tell that you're a dog-friendly office, because I saw a dog walking past you like 2 minutes ago.
Yeah, dog-friendly, skateboard-friendly, scooter-friendly. I mean, I think there's a unicycle or two around as well. So it's
pretty much the same culture as your last company.
Oh, totally, right? Totally. And I would be remiss to say, or to remind us too, I worked from home 100% with GE.
That's true.
I had a global team. Not one person on my team was actually in our country. So this is a completely different atmosphere for me to be in. I come into the office every day. My team, most of our recruiting team is right here. However, we do have a lot in Dallas, Seattle, and Dublin as well, and Krakow and Sydney. But yeah, it's a whole different change. But I think that's the thing, Will, is, to your question, at GE, I loved what I did there too. Sometimes things were a little bit, but honestly, sometimes things were a little bit easier because you have this huge company and this huge brand that you're already working with. The bureaucracy and that sort of thing was a little bit more difficult than here. And even teaming up with the marketing team there, it took me a long time to make friends, and at least, acknowledge each other, and then hopefully like get into the stage where the relationship where sometimes we're holding hands and we're not in a fight. Here it was really instant. And I think maybe it's a smaller company and they acknowledge the employment brand, but I also think we're moving into this era where companies are recognizing that the employment brand has so much to do with their company brand, whether it's consumer-based or business-based, and I think, it's a lucky place for me to be, where I can tell you the second meeting, I think it was actually in this room. I was in this room with my talent director and a couple of other people. We were just talking about the strategy and the plan moving forward. And our CEO and I think Jared's title, the two co-founders, Ryan and Jared of Qualtrics, walk in and introduced, and I had already met Ryan. He introduced me to Jared. Right away are asking me about Glassdoor. What's the plan? How are we going to make sure that, we're paying attention to what people are saying and making changes for what people are saying on there? And, it was just so energizing to just see like the importance and the understanding already in place. Even
right from the top, the engagement from leadership.
Right from the top.
Man, you're like a kid in a candy store and a kid who's like born and ready to do this too. So that's just awesome. I'm so excited for you, and it's been awesome just watching your journey. And so it sounds like you've really got the foundation in place, and then this year is a lot about activating that and getting employees on board.
It is. And I'm really excited and lucky that I've already established showing the importance of what good employment branding does, that I'm starting to put together a team of people. So that's nice, because sometimes you just can't do it all alone. And we're putting together a team of people really thinking about how do we customize this whole journey. And I don't mean just the candidate or just the brand. We are partnering even with our IO scientists here, our data scientists here on employee experience, and saying, look, employee experience starts from before somebody's even aware of our company to being aware from it, to converting to an applicant, to converting to a hire, to being an employee, to even maybe beyond that, alumni and ambassador. And we're looking at what that looks like all the way across. How do we customize it? But then in normal Qualtrics fashion, how do we connect the data to actually tell the story and the journey to be able to draw conclusions and decisions from the data insights that we can draw?
Yeah. So like the whole life cycle of of someone before and after their Qualtrics experience as an employee. So given that in mind, what really brought you into the talent brand space? What was that life cycle like to get you into talent branding?
What was your career journey?
Yeah. And, I'll tell you, this is always that question where I feel like I preface 15 things before I get into it. No, but I just feel like, there's not a great prescription of do this, do that, do this. I think all of us in talent brand can talk about how we got into it, and every single story is different. But it's the things that we draw from those experiences that we bring into it that provide us to the professional that we are in the space now, right? So for me specifically, I was more in the marketing side of things and really hadn't done anything in recruiting. I can't tell you I've actually recruited a single soul to an organization, and so I don't bring that recruiting knowledge with me. Now, I really choose people to be part of my team that know that back end of it, that have evolved with recruiting along the way in the last decade, right? And can bring that strength because it's not mine. So mine was more of the marketing side of things. I actually looked at a job description at GE that was labeled social media recruiter. I'm pretty sure that was the title. And walking in, they said, hey, we know there's social media. We know that our corporate brand isn't paying attention to it. So we need somebody in recruiting to pay attention to it. So it wasn't even called employment brand at that point. And about 6 months into it, they were like, this is not we're not just going to go post jobs.
This
here
is
on
so
social
much
media
bigger.
And get people to
Yeah, so
apply.
much bigger than social media.
Yeah.
Not just treat this like every other channel, like a job bob and just post.
Exactly. It's just another place to post and pray at that point, right? It was the same way of doing things. So so I think that's where at GE really evolving it into, hey, this is an actual brand and we need to represent ourselves as a brand, as stories, it's not about the jobs really, and attract people. What we say here is attract people to the spaceship instead of the seat on it.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So,
I remember, and I remember interviewing at GE years and years ago when you had been there for a little bit, and learning about your career journey and seeing how similar that is. Same thing. I was in the marketing background and moved in and sort of had to learn recruiting as we went. So it's awesome to see both the similarities and differences of people's career journeys. And so, and after you built really an incredible program at GE, what motivated you to go to Qualtrics and start over again?
Well, and it's funny. I'll actually probably reference this person a couple of times, but Jennifer Newbill at Dell is one of my faves, and I got on a call with her. I'm sorry.
She's a friend for sure. Absolutely.
A friend for sure.
Total respect.
And a facilitator last year as well.
And a past facilitator of the summit. Yeah.
There you go. Yeah. And she's in my favorite city of the world too, in Austin, Texas. Right. So, but she said something that will stick with me forever. And I was just like, am I crazy for jumping from a 350,000 person company that hires 80,000 a year to a company that, is growing really fast, but, currently has about 1,500 employees? Am I crazy for doing this? And she said just simply, hey, why wouldn't you want to exercise that other part of your brain? Haven't you been doing this? You built it. It's there, and go try it somewhere else and in a whole different manner of what you need to do, moving from, GE was dabbling in the digital space, but, more in the industrial era and the manufacturing era, right? And moving from that into a straight up startup high-tech company. And it has been, that's the challenge, and that's the part that makes it really turn. I think along with that, it lends itself to when we talk about our backgrounds in marketing, things in recruiting are definitely evolving. And as you look at high-tech space, I've had to use that knowledge here more than I ever did at GE, probably because they buy into it a lot easier here too, though, where it's all about the sales ladder, from unaware to aware to selling to converting to, and if we follow that in our recruiting manner, it's really an exciting thing to see put in place and to really drive a lot of change and fast change in the way that we recruit talent or help people find their fit.
Yeah. And thanks for actually answering the question that I was supposed to ask, which is who inspires you in the talent brand space. And she went into the Jennifer Newbill just right on cue. So thank you for that. And sorry for throwing you a curveball. But yeah, Brian, what are we covering next?
So really, if you think about what's happening, we're inspired. I'm also inspired by Jen Newbill. I've heard her speak, and I get inspired because she knows it so well, and part of that is because she's had to sell it so well.
Yeah.
So you have to sell it in a lot of these conversations to prove that value, to be like, this is why we should care about it. This is the impact on our consumer brand. This is our impact on the bottom line, on dollars, and to be able to tell that story. She does a really, really good job of that.
And we've talked about this before, right? And this is what makes people like Jennifer Newbill and Shaunda, who are some of the leaders in our space, building really amazing employer brands, is that ability to sell. I feel like we all have these people that gravitate to this industry are really multi-potentialites. They have sort of they're chameleons that have multiple of these skill sets that just make this such a great career choice for them. Typically it's a marketing background for sure, but just a personality towards sales and things like that. Brian,
entrepreneurial.
Yeah,
entrepreneurial.
So entrepreneurial.
That's something that's definitely a recurring theme. So
yeah.
I just out of that, I'm going to test this theory, Shaunda. So what is the most random career experience you have had that people wouldn't expect?
Wait, do you know this already?
No, I have no idea. This is a total guess.
Will knows.
Totally leading into it.
No, I don't know.
You don't know?
No. This
Okay.
is me just throwing it out there.
So it's truly an entrepreneurial thing, right? Like, didn't you own a business before, Shaunda?
Yeah. So I owned and operated my own performance motorcycle shop.
Yeah.
Straight out of college.
Wow.
You didn't know that?
No, I didn't.
That's why I was like, I didn't remember telling you, but
no, I had no idea. But
so
what I did was I made an educated guess based on the people that I know in the space, people that we know, to say like, okay, so I've been a florist, a bartender. I can't tell you how many different things that I've done. So I know you've got something interesting in your background.
Well, and that's an interesting point, right? Because man, so like I owned and operated my own motorcycle shop, and the reality of it is the only reason I wasn't like a great motorcycle rider. I liked riding motorcycles, but I wasn't great. But the thing is I was able to market, right? Like came up with the logo and was able to come up with the marketing plan, and definitely got in with the right audiences and the right bike gangs and things like that, right? So it was like I would actually pull up at a stoplight and have a sport bike next to me revving the engine, and would take him on and would race him to the next stoplight and hand him a business card. And I did that several times. And I mean, I think that's the thing is you learn your expertise that make that any kind of business, right? But I think to your other point is just the variety of backgrounds. So like I've had my real estate license. I've had my insurance license. I also was a florist. Really? I never was a bartender. I don't think I would be a good bartender because I'm just not very coordinated. Like I think it would be a sad story. I probably would drink too much too.
I swear we're kindred spirits. My first business was my own vintage clothing shop, a storefront.
See?
Yeah.
So the thing is,
I think all that transferable though.
I know. And I think all of that like lends itself to what we actually apply today. I mean, I can remember doing a lot of consulting work for real estate agents and even small businesses for how to market their companies or market themselves as a real estate agent, and
that's
when
exactly what I was
doing
doing before I took my first employer brand job or social recruiting administrator job at VMware back in 2008, 2009. Right before that, I was teaching real estate agents how to use social media to attract first-time home buyers, right? It's crazy how many parallels.
It is.
And I feel like we're discovering new ones. We were talking the other day. I was like, wow, you know that person too? Like, yeah, it's crazy.
I'm starting to wonder, like, if all the brands you work for, like, somehow intertwine, right? So for people that don't know yet, and we haven't talked about this yet, is Qualtrics was the acquisition's not final yet. I think it will be soon, but was recently acquired by SAP. And at first I called Will in a panic. I'm like, oh, what? I'm going back into like this GE and
tell me about SAP.
Yeah. And the reality of it is we are going to be able to be the experience management leader in this industry because of SAP. So SAP runs all the O data, the operational data. And if we're running all the X data for all these companies, it's a match made in heaven.
And that employer brand is my baby.
Yeah.
And that team over there, Matthew Jeffrey leads that team, is really great.
Do you know how many people they have on their team?
A lot.
28.
Yeah, 28 people.
Holy moly, that's crazy.
We interviewed someone recently. They have a team of over 100.
Wait,
which interview did we do?
There was 80, and it was
80.
It was 80, and it was Unilever, and it was ZA.
Yes, that's right, ZA.
Wow.
Part of an 80-person team.
Yep.
Guys, think about this. Like 3 years ago, we were lucky if we were like a full-time dedicated one.
Yeah, one was lucky. One was like, wow,
Right.
you're so advanced.
This is crazy.
So,
This is awesome.
When you think about everything that we're doing, there's so many different people, more and more every day, getting into the space. So it's really important that we set up ourselves for success, relationships wise.
Yeah.
And so we think about all the people that we work with. And I know your upcoming roundtable session at the summit is about those relationships. What can you share a little bit about the kind of the talk track? Obviously the summit's very different, right? So you're not going to be presenting for an hour and 15 minutes. You're going to be talking. Everybody's going to be talking and sharing and pulling all this information. What kind of gets you going about those relationships, and what have you learned?
Well, I think one thing that gets me going is the more you talk to people in our space, the more you realize we might be different, but we're still the same, right? A lot of us are struggling with those same relationships, whether it's with leadership, whether it's with marketing, whether it's with internal comms, whoever it might be, right? And the good news is the format at the summit, at least from what I understand about it, is about the conversation, right? It's about talking about how we experience those challenges and then talking through together, how do we overcome those challenges, and getting some ideas from each other, and I think that's what's really cool, one, about the format of the summit, but then also what's really cool to just sit back and kind of say, like, I always feel refreshed when I know I'm not the only one. So the idea of that we're all experiencing this, whether you're at a big company or a small company, you have basically these set audiences that you need to be able to influence, and for them to buy into it. And then how do we do that, right? And kind of go amongst the steps of how do we do that. I will say at GE, it took a little bit longer with certain audiences, and definitely, actually, we were talking about this today, just how even the fight was, we talked about certain teams or certain silos that you have to work with, and how it's a little bit different working with them, or sensitive working with them, or difficult working with them. And I said, at GE, I think it was even more, there were more factors in it, where it wasn't just even relationships with that silo, it was also political factors and like other things in it. Where here, it is really the silos of the teams, or not silos, but the teams that we're working with. And then how do we find what works for them? And so I think we'll talk a lot about how do we show them a win for them with what we're doing. Using data is one example, and we'll talk about other ways. I think it's also able to really, sometimes what we do, if you think about it, sometimes what we do, it is new, relative. And we're kind of taking power away from people who have already had it taken away from them. So what I mean by that is our marketing teams, our leadership, a couple decades ago, they owned every single thing that showed externally about their company, right? So whatever they pushed out was the perception. About a decade or however long ago, right? 15 years ago. I can't remember, my Facebook told me how long I've been on it the other day. Anyways, but social media took that away from them. It totally took control away. Where now the authors are the people of the world, right? And it's not what I'm pushing out. It's what people are saying about me and how they perceive me. Then we walk in a few years ago as one full-time person, and now we're adding to our teams of up to 80 or whatever. That's crazy. But now we're walking in and we're saying, hey, you not only don't own it, there's a whole nother thing that actually is affecting it. And we own that, right? So that's a hard pill to swallow if you put yourself in their shoes.
That's a really good point. It's like marketing went from, having the megaphone and really owning the brand to then playing sort of a control. Now we have to control the brand to now marketing
That's a good way to say that.
Almost has to be like a partner, because almost every job is a marketing job now in some aspects. And so it's like they lead the charge and they can work with the employer brand person. So it not only has recruiting changed because of employer branding and a bunch of other things because of social media, but marketing has shifted too. And so like I'm really excited and looking forward to the conversation and how other people have tackled this as well. And we have so many different industries being represented at Talent Brand Summit this year, so many different company sizes, you know, from small startups to really large enterprises to really hot startups. So it'll be really interesting. So I cannot wait for that discussion, because that was one that, you know, that your session is new. This is one that we covered last year.
Well, yeah, it came out of the session. There were so many good topics that came out. They were like, oh, hey, we should like tools, relationships, how all these things that were just like, oh yeah.
We talked about it, but it wasn't a set thing. And that was one of the feedback that came out of people in the last session. We said, hey, what can we do next time? And this was the topic, because it's obviously one that everybody hits.
All right. So Shaunda, obviously marketing is huge. Like what else? And by the way, is there a certain team within marketing? Because marketing can also be a little bit fragmented sometimes.
Yeah, you know, and I think there's several teams in marketing that need buy-in, right? In order to get my Instagram cards made, I got to be in good with creative so that they kind of like pay attention to me, because I am their customer, but a new customer, right? In order to get my video made, I've got to get in good with the video team, right? If I want a culture video, and I actually, when I got here, it was, we need a culture video. And I quickly realized that I was not going to have any authoring of a culture video, that no one thought that I should own that.
Wow.
And so what I did is getting in go with the video team. We used a ton of B-roll. We grabbed some Glassdoor comments that had been made and we put that over it. If you actually go to our Glassdoor page for Qualtrics, you'll see it in the header. It's less than a minute long, put some cool music to it. And we've gotten some amazing reviews on it, as just the culture for Provo, and you'll see dogs and skateboards in that one too.
Wait, dogs on skateboards or dogs and skateboards?
I don't think there's any dogs on skateboards. They might be in the pool out back.
I just need to set my expectations. I derailed you. You were talking about the video that you use, which by the way, I love, because I remember seeing you post a link to that video in a group. And and that was great. So it was being scrappy, right? So it's taking, like, we've got B-roll, we've got images, we've got music, and then we've got all this content, which is really the voice of the employee. And you just packaged it all together.
Yep. That's awesome. Let's round it out with a little bit of advice. Like, so what advice would you give yourself, when you were starting out in employer branding? You know, assume you have a time machine.
Yeah. It could be a DeLorean, whatever you want it to be.
Yeah.
You know, I think the advice that I would give is to try anything. You know, I think I was caught up for a few years, I would say, in the idea that this is the way recruiting's done things, and so this is the way I should do it. And I think we really need to step and think outside the box and say, you know, hey, what do I want to try? And let's just try it. You know, I mean, what's the worst that can happen? No, you shouldn't say that. But you know, make an educated guess and take risks.
That was my motto. It's like, but ask for forgiveness, rather than permission. Sometimes you got to do it. Yeah.
The other thing too is I didn't put in talking about these relationships and working in your company and the different functions, I didn't understand the importance of getting the executive buy-in. And I think, honestly, I mean, I'll share a quick story, but I can go in further depth at the summit, is the third week I was here, I found myself in a meeting with the CEO and all of his direct reports. And I had basically 2 minutes to show a spike in increase on our careers website the day that we published an article about employees. You know, and I had to make the point of why this was so important and what I needed to do with it and what they needed to do to support it.
No pressure
and that
for
was
2 minutes. No pressure.
Yeah. Yeah, no problem. But I mean, talk about what a cool, like, I guess it's a kid in a candy store, like Will's analogy. I mean, I was in there just like, yeah, you know, like that was my dream come true, you know, to be able to show the importance that, you know, employee stories and actually talking about employees and being transparent. And it's not about the jobs. That's what's actually going to get us, you know, major headway. And then, you know, being able to say, again, going back to the point of what I wish I would have told myself is not only having their buy-in, but being able to quickly say, here's what I need you to do, you know? And I think that was huge. And I didn't do that at GE probably the first couple of years I was at it. So I think, yeah, 2 pieces of advice would be take risks and realize the importance that you have with your leadership and figure out a way to really get them behind it in an easy, quick way.
Yeah. Well, Shaunda, thank you so much for joining us. I'm very excited to have you part of Talent Brand Summit. I love your passion, and it's going to be a really good time.
Yeah, I can't wait. I know a lot of people are going to get so much out of that, and I think they're probably going to want to talk to you after the session too.
Yeah.
Well, I love it. I think this is how we've gone in 3 years from one person to now we have little teams or big teams if you're at certain companies. It's because we all are passionate about it. We're making a difference in it and hopefully growing this little community of people and what we bring to the table and hopefully what we bring to our companies. So I will talk about it. I'm sure you can tell. I'll talk about it till I'm dead probably, but nonstop. And I would love to catch up with anybody that wants to catch up about it for sure.
Well, we love it. And can't wait to see you in March. See you in Austin.
Looking forward to catching up.
Not long away. Thanks. Bye guys.